Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, again, we've come together. You know, whoever is watching the show and myself and the crew puts this incredible, intricate process together. I mean, I guess when you watch it after the editing and after the, you know, we do the show, it looks in a way smooth and it looks simple and it looks, you know, just like we've done it 1,000 times before, and in a way we have. And in a way it is simple, and in a way it isn't complex, really. But in the way of the dedication and the way of the hunger of the crew to come together and collaborate, and the amount of pre-production it takes, and to get the guests coming in from all over the world to come and to share their love and their story of dedication and their story of commitment and their story of collaboration and their story of the commitment to that love and the oneness we always talk about. I mean, everybody's lives has that, in essence, that backstory, that the depth of their lives. And most of our lives look on the surface like, oh, well, that's happening again, or you know, there's no uniqueness to it. But all of us know there, in a sense, there is a uniqueness to all of our stories. And there is a depth to all of our stories that goes deep and deep and deep and deep and deep and deep and deeper. And the more those unique stories go into that deep and deep and to that depth of that humanness, we literally come to God. And in that there's a tremendous sense of oneness, of love. And all of us, in the uniqueness of our lives, the separateness of our lives, the seeming diversity of our lives, in our hearts we know there is that love, that connection, that oneness, that brotherhood and sisterhood of humankind. And that is what, you know, the Bridging Heaven and Earth show has been about from the very first show. Dedicated to the oneness, dedicated to the recognition of that truth, of that experience. Because I guess every religion, every spiritual teacher has come with that story. And then how does that story become a reality in lives, more and more and more lives? How does that experience of that connection, of that love, of that oneness, of that the Father and I, the Goddess and I are one? How does that become real for a human being? And that's the story of our lives, and that's the story of the show. You know, and once again, we have somebody here who's making that effort, who's making that commitment, who's dedicating his life in a way that other people who've had the same experience and the same gifts as him and the same accolades and the same acclaim wouldn't have taken that path. But we know that that path really in our lives must be taken, and we know we need to make that commitment to love, that commitment to truth. I mean, Michael Goorjian is the director and he's the writer and the co-star with Kirk Douglas of this extraordinary new movie, Illusion, that really is committed to a movie of substance, a movie that means something, a movie that questions why we're here, what it is to love, how does time and space come in, issues that we know in most of our lives we take for granted, and we have a sense that there's more to it, that there's something bigger, that there's a vastness to this life, there's a vastness to this human experience, to this experience of being on this extraordinary planet that we're not hooked into on a regular basis, and something in our hearts knows we want to, and we must. I mean, Michael starred in this incredible hit TV series, Party of Five, that a lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. He won an Emmy Award for a performance he did in a category with Alan Alda, Ian McKellen, Richard Gere, and Matthew Broderick. And that acclaim came to him, and he used that acclaim and that notoriety to really reach into his heart and make movies that have the potential to change lives, the potential to open the heart. And that's really what he's dedicated to. And that, to us, is a real amazing thing in this day of fame and fortune, greed and more and more. And you know, all the shows on, lifestyles that are rich and famous and Entertainment Tonight, that someone has gone through that path and come out into, let me do something of love, let me do something of substance. And we have extraordinary videos. Actually, we have the video, the trailer to the movie Illusion that Michael did, which is really beautiful, and we'll show that right after the meditation. And then we have a video of a future guest and a past guest on the show, Cecilia, the incredible Norwegian singer, When You Wish Upon a Star. And as most of you know, we're in the middle of this extraordinary international art project where unbelievable artists from all over the world are collaborating, coming together to produce a new original piece based on the theme Bridging Heaven and Earth. And what we try to do is show at least 2 pieces every show we do. They're coming in from all over the world. Today we're showing somebody from Australia who came aboard through this other incredible artist from Australia who put in a piece. And so we're going to show Howie Cook's piece, and we're going to show Bruce Pollock's piece, which is from Philadelphia. So, I mean, the potential is, again, to come into that love and come into that experience. And, you know, that is the opportunity that we want and we need, and it's time for it for all of us. So as we normally do, join me in a short meditation, and then we'll have the trailer to Illusion, and then Michael will be with us. So please join me in a short meditation. Thank you. So the first video we're going to see is the trailer to the movie Illusion, extraordinary new movie by Michael Goorjian, and then Michael will be with us when the video's over. So just enjoy.
The story doesn't end when you get here. All the mortal pieces have scattered, but the impressions remain.
I wanted to see my son before I died.
When people live their lives, it's recorded. The significant things burn an impression, and it becomes an actual record. Look there.
Is that
Christopher, your son.
my son?
I really like you. I know I just saw you for the first time the other day, but I feel like we've known each other forever.
Sometimes I wish I could rewrite my life.
How would you rewrite it?
I would have followed my heart more. Maybe then I would have been ready when I met the one person that makes me feel alive.
I love you.
People end up in movies they never expected to be in.
He can do that.
Sometimes the film just has to end tragically.
No. No. You gotta help me
Why, Donald?
because I love my son.
Mark the spot to cut back in.
He's got a gun. Get him.
Are you Christopher Baines?
Yeah.
Here, it's from your dad.
Deep down, everyone knows all we are is a brief flicker on a screen in the dark, an illusion.
Hi everybody, well, welcome back. So that was a beautiful, beautiful video, wasn't it? So, and the movie is really like that. So before I start talking to Michael, this is a picture by Bruce Rawls that he did. It's called Bridging Heaven and Earth, Infinite Sphere. And again, it's what his representation of Bridging Heaven and Earth was, and it was a new original piece, and he's an extraordinary artist from the Philadelphia area. So welcome, Michael. I'm glad you could come.
Thank you for having me.
So when did you know that with, like I said at the opening, you had this success and, relative young, and that you needed to do things and make movies that really mattered and really, questioned what things were about and why and love and all that?
Well, I think that as an actor, I slowly started to realize that for me, the projects that meant the most to me, it wasn't just the part I was playing or, how big of a movie, or I actually cared a lot about what it was about, what the piece was saying. And a lot of times, even if what I'm doing is good or the quality of the show was good, I just didn't feel like, it's not really saying anything. It's entertainment.
What for?
Yeah. And entertainment, I think, is important, but I do think just as an art form, if it's an art form, it should be conveying something, and hopefully something good. So, I realized as an actor, it was a little more difficult for me to be in control of the types of things I would be in. I have to take a job or this job or that. And so I decided, I'll just make stuff on my own, or I'll try to.
And so that's when you started writing scripts on your own, and so that's one step, and then the next step of like saying, I want to direct this. And the process of direction and a feature film in 2 hours, and how did you cross that line? Is that one step at a time kind of?
Yeah, I mean, directing, I loved. I wanted to direct for a long time because I like working with actors, and I think acting is something that you can see on a lot of different levels, and I think we usually see it just on the surface level of its fame or its celebrity, and to me, it's not. I think when you see a performance, a real performance, kind of, I think what Kirk did in Illusion, it's not just how well you are pretending to be realistic or how well you're portraying a character. I see it as real good performances. Something's coming through a person. More of a truth is can be exposed. And that kind of acting happens, okay, not all the time, but when it does, to me, that's a very spiritual thing for me. So in terms of how I first took the step into actually making a film, I had a script that I wrote, which was a small love story called Beatrice, which I haven't actually made yet. I'd like to at some point. But I tried to make it the traditional way in Hollywood, and I had an agent, and we went around and tried to raise money, and it was a traditional Hollywood horror story in a way.
Just an unpleasant process almost from day one.
Yeah, well, film is an expensive art form, and so it's just as much of a business as it is an art form. And, but yeah, eventually it became something other than what the intention was. Yeah, intended to make. And I backed out of it and said, I'd rather not make it
that way.
So I ended up going back up to my hometown, Oakland, California. And I thought, well, how am I going to make a film or raise the money to make a film? And so I figured out, basically with Illusion, the story itself, and I don't know how much people will get from the trailer, but the story is segmented in a way. There's sort of stories or films within the film. And I picked this story because of that. And the idea was I used my own money to shoot one part of the film, the son's teenage years, basically.
Kirk Douglas' son.
Yeah, Kirk Douglas' son.
Who he was disenfranchised from.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the story is a father who finds out that he had an illegitimate son that he never knew, and the father is played by Kirk Douglas, is a filmmaker who's made
a famous filmmaker who's dying, and right.
He's made all these great romance pictures, but he himself has never really
known love,
or and the symbol of that is this son that is now in his 30s and he's never met. And he's wondering what has happened to this kid. And what we do in the film is he is taken to a movie theater in kind of a magical realism type of way.
Akashic record type of thing.
Yeah, and he's
right.
shown what the son's life is in the form of film
Reels.
So what I did was I shot the first reel of the son's life. And I got my cousin to help out. I got my neighbor to help out. We borrowed a camera from Francis Coppola, and he actually didn't know at the time when we borrowed the camera. He found out.
Sometimes they call that other than
Yeah.
borrowing, but
Yeah.
I don't want
Brooklyn,
to.
you
Yeah,
probably-
for Brooklyn, we'd call it borrowing,
Well,
but
Oakland is the
right,
West
Oakland
Coast
is-
version of Brooklyn.
I understand. We borrowed it.
Yeah, we borrowed it. And we also borrowed an awful lot of wine from Francis Coppola, which we used to negotiate deals with. And so,
That's funny.
like, I got a lighting package that was, $2,000 for $800 because we threw in a case of wine. Eventually,
Where is my wine? I want to know.
Yeah.
Did
Eventually-
Spielberg steal my
he
wine?
might have. Eventually, Francis found out,
Nice.
or we showed him what we were doing, and he actually appreciated
Nice.
our tenacity. I guess.
Right.
So I shot that first piece with my own money and just by favors and friends, and then I used it to raise money locally. I got my parents gave me money.
Very local.
Yeah,
Very
local.
local.
My English teacher from high school.
Right.
Yeah, I at one point literally went door to door in my neighborhood and said, I'm trying to make a film. I put together a presentation of what we had shot so far, and I eventually raised the money to do the second portion.
And
of
this is
Sun's
before
Life.
Kirk Douglas was involved
Yeah,
at
well,
all.
that's part of the
Right,
scheme
yeah,
later
no,
on.
right, yeah, I understand.
When I went into this, I pretty much had an idea overall of what I was going to try to do, which was this kind of snowball
Right.
effect. So I raised the money to do the second piece. Then the third piece was pretty much credit cards. Then I took all three and I created a presentation.
And you were fairly happy with all three as they came out. You thought
Yeah.
that was good to show somebody of a Kirk Douglas's caliber, of that age, to be your father.
Well, the idea was to be able to get someone who had name recognition. Because, I've had a lot of friends who've made beautiful films, wonderful stories that nobody will ever see.
Right.
And it's because it's a business. And one of the aspects of a film getting seen is
Who's in it?
So I thought, I don't want to just make a film that just sits on a shelf somewhere. I want to try to do this in a way where it gets out there. So the idea from the beginning was shoot all of the son's life, which is, a good 75%
Right.
of the film, then take that to someone like Kirk Douglas and say, here's the script.
Was he the first one you took it to? I mean, was there like an Al Pacino? Was it? I mean, was it?
No, he wasn't. I just knew I wanted to go to somebody famous. We went to several different actors, and a lot of time, for the most part, it was about money. It was great.
Really?
It looks good. The part looks great. How much are you going to pay me? And
Really, it was that. I mean, these people are very wealthy. I mean, super wealthy, without mentioning.
well, it's not just them. It's also the
their
whole
agents
list
and the
of people
manager.
that you
Yeah,
have to
right,
get through.
right.
But Kirk was an idea that one of the people working on it had, and we said, well, he's had a stroke. He said, nope, does he even act still? And we sent him the script, and immediately he called and said, I want to
Wow,
do it.
that's so beautiful, really.
And
I mean, really, the first time I watched it, I told you I watched it twice, and the first time I watched it sporadically, and the thing that struck me the first time was how courageous it was for somebody to, who come off, looking so disabled in a way, but so powerful and so beautiful anyhow. I mean, there was something
Yeah.
really amazing about that particular performance in there.
I think that the reason he responded so quickly and what he ended up doing in the film, he knew very well what he was. He wanted to be able to, first of all, do what he's done his whole life, which is act.
Right.
And here's a guy who's at the end of his life, and he's an icon.
Yeah, what roles he's going to
Yeah,
get.
it's, if anybody calls, it's,
Yeah,
hey, could
Spartacus
you...
Senior is probably
Yeah.
not going to. They're not going to do
They're
a.
not going to do the remake.
No, not with that. No.
Spartacus, the senior years.
Right. The declining years.
But I, in a way, also, I think because of what the role is and what he ends up doing in it, it was his way of, he knows this is going to be his last film, and he wanted to be able to give something.
Yeah, no, really, I mean, I hear a lot, through people we know that he's really becoming much more spiritual. He had that plane crash and, he came out of it.
And he had a stroke.
And he had a stroke, and,
yeah.
it's like there's something about, like I said at the opening, to come into that love and the oneness and,
Yeah.
And
for someone who's such a symbol of manly fighting.
Yeah, that's what was
and
so...
to show this other side of him.
It was fantastic. It was really beautiful, that part.
Yeah. And I feel very grateful that.
And so right away he said yes, and let's work on it together. And I guess you spent some time rehearsing.
Yeah, we spent about, I thought going in I would get maybe a week of rehearsal at most. And we ended up spending close to like about a month and a half.
Was that shot at his house?
No.
Oh.
He's smart enough to know not
I
to.
was going to say.
You don't let a film crew into your own house.
Don't tell the people from Pilgrim Terrace, oh no, we gave it away, no. Yeah, right.
Yeah, actually, was it that house? No, there was another house that we shot in where the sound guy turned off the refrigerator and forgot to turn it back on, and there was like $1,000 worth of meats in the freezer. Yeah, which we had to
Right,
So-
but the sound was good.
Sound was great.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that when we worked together, a lot of it had to do with taking what I had written and transforming it into
What he could
what
say.
yeah, and
right.
it was amazing. I mean, we would take a speech that was this big and turn it into phrases that you could understand, because he had a stroke, and so
Right.
it's not
No,
easy
it's,
to
yeah,
understand.
absolutely.
And I think, I remember one critic in the Bay Area said, one of the most amazing things about the film is you're watching and you're going, wow, you're listening to a man who's had a stroke, and suddenly, like, after about 5 minutes in, you go, I understand everything.
Yeah,
this
no,
guy
you
says."
you develop, like,
Yeah.
it's like understanding a foreign language.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I understand strokedom now.
Yeah.
No, really, I was going, oh my God, I understand every word the guy says. Am I having a stroke or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah. So he, and he had a lot. Half the things those are his dogs in the film, and one gag after another he'd come up with, and he really put a lot into this role. So.
When you were done with it, I mean, did you try to get it to have the distribution from one of the major distribution companies?
Oh, sure.
And they just don't get it, right? More or less? Or
Well-
you get it going first and then we'll take it on? Like they do it a lot of times with books. I mean, spiritual
Yeah.
books are, you do the first part of it, you get it going, and if
If it's
becomes,
making money, then
right, then we'll
we're
do it.
happy to partake in it.
Right.
Yeah, I think. I mean, once we finished it, we went to several festivals, and every major studio or distribution outlet goes, well, you won the award and everyone loves it, but we don't know how to market this. Who out there in the world wants to see a film like this?
It's interesting because we talked about that later after I watched it straight through, and I
Yeah.
really think there are a lot of people who would want to watch it if it somehow the message could be gotten to them in the right way.
Yeah. Well, I think that, and part of it is, it's not if it was a spiritual film that said, the headline was, this
Right.
is a spiritual film, come
Right,
see
what
it.
the bleep. Or,
Yeah, then
that
it'd be
kind
then maybe, you know how to market it, because
Right.
you know who, but it's not, it's a love story, and it's a reconciliation story. It's first and foremost a piece of entertainment with something underneath it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that struck me that I mentioned to you that time is that it had a softer energy under it, which is a harder sell.
Yeah.
But not an impossible sell to me. It's just, you got to get it to the right people.
Yeah, and I think the idea behind, once it does come out, is hopefully if we can sustain it in theaters long enough, word of mouth will, allow it to get to the people that would like it. So.
And so, I mean, so now, when did you actually finish it? And then you're in the process of festivals and airlines and...
I started shooting it in 2001.
Wow.
Before, I remember we
Wow.
had two presidents
This
at
is
the
not
time.
2006 now.
Yeah.
I mean, because
Oh,
the
yeah,
show
yeah.
rotates
Yeah.
and, basically they're...
Yeah,
Yeah.
it took me 5 years to shoot it, to raise the money to finish it, to get Kirk, to then, because I didn't, I didn't make it for a lot of money. I made it for very,
Right.
very small amounts, so.
At one point, they were even talking when they first called about the movie, the Visioneering group, who were your managers or press people at that time. They talked about maybe he'd even come up. At some point, he was
Kirk. Yeah.
Kirk, and I think he lives within probably 10 minutes of here, somewhere in Montecito.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
You would always be going to Montecito for the
Right,
weekend.
yeah, it's a nice place to go. But, we thought that would be an interesting, with you and him on here, but then I guess his health is not allowing that
Yeah.
up until this point. But,
Yeah.
but that would have been interesting also.
Yeah. So yeah, now we're basically I went through a whole series of festivals, and Stephen Simon, who runs a thing called the Spiritual
There's a
Cinema
cinema.
Circle, he's been a big supporter. He actually, funny enough, was the first guy that 10 years ago, when I had the script Beatrice, everybody's like, what is this? This is spiritual love story. What? Nobody wants to see this. And he was the first person to find it and say, this is good. And he tried his best to help.
Really,
help
because
me
he
get it
did the
made.
thing with When Love May Come or something.
Yeah,
with
what
Robin,
dreams,
When
what
Dreams May Come.
and then he also produced Somewhere in
In
Time,
Time
which
with
was a
Yeah, with
Christopher Reeve,
Reeve.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, so that he was one of the first people to support me as a filmmaker and encourage me to try to do things that are not necessarily, a horror film or.
Well, it's interesting, there's a whole spate of them seemingly, surprisingly coming out now. There's the one that he did up there with
Neil Donald Walsh.
Neil Donald
the,
Walsh, Conversations with God. There's the one,
Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
and then there's the other one that, what's the one that the 12th Way or the 12 Lessons?
Oh, Celestine Prophecies?
Prophecy, yeah, Celestine Prophecy. So it's interesting how, maybe there's an evolution that, if one starts to do better, that
Yeah.
could really help the others. Now, I guess it still remains to be seen,
Yeah,
how they
does.
do and all that, but.
yeah. But I think, I would hope that there's only, for me, the movies that have mattered to me or have meant something to me, always had something else going on. There's a mythos involved. There are even things like big commercial things like Star Wars,
The
There's-
first couple. at least.
the first few, yeah.
He seemed to
Yeah,
lose
wait,
the mythology as it went along,
Yeah.
in my humble
Mythology,
opinion.
technology,
Right, right.
But I think that as an art form, if that is re-engaged, if filmmakers pay more attention to the mythos of stories, then
They really come from the root of people. So people, if it's made properly, people will be drawn to it.
Yeah.
Because it hits,
Yeah.
their essence, their
And it
being.
doesn't mean that it shouldn't be entertaining.
No, you'd want it to be entertaining
Yeah.
and fun and joyous and, tell a story, of
Yeah.
a human story.
I think I had a conversation once with Mark Vicente, who was one of the directors of What the
Right.
Tape. And we were talking about the idea that good film should do two things. First and foremost, it's entertainment. When people go into a movie theater, for a lot of people, that's the closest thing to a spiritual experience. They're going into a trance.
Has tremendous potential.
Potential, yeah.
Right.
You're being put in a place where, if you're in a movie theater and you turn around and you look at everybody they're not thinking about what they did earlier today.
Yeah, who
They're
they
not thinking
are.
about-
No, they're in the moment.
They're actually there,
Right,
but they're there engaged in that.
right. They're
So it's
sucked into
almost-
that.
it's
And that's why
almost
the
a-
potential of that is so strong. And
Yes.
if crap comes out of there, it's also extremely powerful.
Yeah, well, if
And
you
that's
have,
television the same way.
If you
Right.
have a film that is putting people into a good trance, that's good entertainment, meaning a deep trance.
Right.
If it's a horrible story and it sucks and it's not entertaining, you're not effectively putting a person into a trance. But once somebody's in a trance, then what are you feeding them?
Right.
What are you giving
Is
them
it
at that
uplifting?
point?
Is it inspiring?
Is it something is it nothing? you know, I've seen plenty of films that, oh my, they're so entertaining, but I
Right,
walk out
yeah,
and it's like,
yeah.
oh, okay, that was entertaining.
Yeah,
but
right.
what
You're
else?
hungry 10 minutes
Yeah.
later, as they say.
Then there's sometimes when I'll see a film and I'll walk out and I feel like I want to take a shower, you know, because
Right.
what I was fed was something that was
So dirty. Right, I know, it's right.
So you could use it as a way of giving people.
Right. I always thought it had, I mean, I told you, written a couple of scripts that I thought, you know, the potential of that trance is so powerful. Right, so maybe what we'll do is show the second video. It's, again, it's Cecilia, this incredible Norwegian singer, spiritual being. When You Wish Upon a Star, Cecilia, it's beautiful, enjoy it.
When a star is born, they possess a gift or two. One of them is this: they have the power to make a wish come true. You wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do. Fate is kind. She brings to those who love the sweet fulfillment of a secret longing. Like a bolt out of the blue, fate steps in and sees you through. When you wish upon a star, your dream comes
Ja, da gjenstår det bare å takke for oss her fra Gjøvikfjellene. Ha fortsatt en hyggelig lørdagskveld. Og husk på søndagsprogrammet i morgen klokka 1:30 på samme kanal.
Takk for oss. You wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. Like a bolt out
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So, yeah, a couple of things. First, that Cecilia is going to be on live on the show as a guest, singing and talking later on in the season. So, you know, just keep watching and you'll see her. The first picture, Infinite Sphere, was by Bruce Pollock. If I said Bruce Rawls, it wasn't Bruce Rawls, it was Bruce Pollock. I'm sorry. And this picture behind us, which seems to be a little risque, they're telling me, especially on camera, is by Howie Cook from Australia. He's an extraordinary artist. And we've been receiving paintings from all over the world, from Lithuania, from Canada, from Spain, from Mexico. And this came with Peter Eglinton and Howie Cook from Australia. Peter's painting is so big that we're going to show it, bring it on another show, but we didn't want to do it tonight. It was just too big to carry. But it's another extraordinary painting from Australia. So we're just honored to have all these paintings come in from all over the world. So, Michael, do you see like so-called spiritual cinema or cinema that really means something or has that essence or that intent from the very beginning? Do you see an opening for that? You know, after your experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the Kirk Douglases who come forth and the, you know, the difficulty in distribution. Do you see an opening or?
I think there's kind of two possibilities. One is which it already is a bit of a niche market. That with what Steve Simon's doing in the spiritual cinema circle, with the success of What the Bleep and all the films that you brought up coming out, things that are very much spiritual messages that are the film is for that. Because of how DVDs work and the internet, it's easier to market directly to a certain group of people. So I think there will be more films and a bigger spiritual cinema type of genre. But then also I hope that there will be more films that are not just geared towards those people, the people that already are on a path.
Speaking to the choir.
Yeah, that more films can be made that are mainstream films that have substance to them, because I do think that so much there's so much influence on society, especially youth, in terms of the films and what you see on TV.
The culture of all that, yeah.
It very much, life imitates art and vice versa. And so to change that side of it, to create, I don't think it's going to be spiritual cinema. I think there's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction from mainstream Hollywood to that. But I do think that there is a way through making films that are the artistry, the entertainment side of it is good, is something that works, but that have something underneath it. That requires a lot more work. It requires more filmmakers to try to fight what is in place
momentum,
right now.
The momentum.
But I think it's possible because, you know, the big studios, they have to make things like Spider-Man to justify the amount of money that's spent to market it, to publicize it. It has to be the lowest common denominator in terms of appeasing as many people as you can. But I think if you can make films that, I don't need the budget of Spider-Man to make a good film. I can make a good film for, you know, what they spent
Right,
in
on
a
lunch.
day on lunch, yeah.
Right.
But having a way of getting that out to people, I think, hopefully I've just by making this film, I've run into more and more people in Hollywood, not just outside, you know, on the fringe, that are trying to do things. And I met a guy not too long ago who's creating what's called a spirit fund, which is for people to make films that have.
You mean finance?
Yeah, finance. Yeah. So I mean, I'm hopeful, and I'm going to keep trying to make things.
You know, it's interesting, but I remember back, actually this film, and friend who was here and was playing it earlier, Christopher, there was a movie, One Tin Soldier. It was the Billy Jack movies, especially the first one, which had, a certain message. I mean, a really strong, almost in-your-face message about a lot of things. Now, he tried a different he like a thing called Four Wall or something,
Four Wall.
where you rent out your own theaters. And did you give that any thought, or is that too time-consuming, too expensive? How does that? Because at some point we were thinking, if we're going to do that, we're going to have to do it that way.
You gotta. Yeah, I mean, I met a guy on the road, a filmmaker who had done a film about, he was Iranian, I think, and that's what he did. He went around and put it in theaters. He made the film close to 10 years ago and has been doing everything on his own. And that's a difficult path. I mean, I spent 5 years just getting this made. I want to make another film.
Right.
I would love it to be able to slowly meet more and more people that do the other jobs so I can focus on actually making films. But yeah, I mean, that's a possibility too. That's a way of getting it out there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like just doing Bridging Heaven and Earth, I mean, how do you get it in more cities? How do you make, like interviews like this available to people? And the internet allows it in some way. Now, how do you get people to pay $99, like iTunes? How can you get your movie associated and have it some revenue generated? Not that the movie was made for money, but money makes it more available in a sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the question now, is how, and interesting, are people interested enough? Because there were, a few spiritual TV stations that I don't think, Oasis TV and the Wisdom Channel. And I think they both, in essence, folded.
Yeah.
Will advertisers pay for it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that right now, I think we might be at the cusp where it's really starting to happen, and things like yours might be the 80th monkey, the thing that changes the quantum of it.
Yeah. I definitely think that there's a need for it. I mean, I can't tell how many times I've shown the film either at a festival or having a screening, and having particularly adults come up and say, why isn't Hollywood making films like this anymore? Why is everything bubble gum, and there's nothing with substance anymore? Well, those people want.
That's where they make
stuff
the
and
money, right?
Well, that's because it's all geared that way right now. But
right now.
I think
It doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
But it is going to take an 80th monkey, I think, to kind of push it into the, it's business. That's half the side of it. And if you can't justify it there, it's a really tough path.
It's interesting because, we talked, and the first time I saw it, I said, when I got the cover and when I got the press information, it didn't really tell what the movie was about, kind of. So how do you convey it in a way that it's really reaching the right people, even in the context of, you went to a spiritual PR place and you tried to do it that way, and then I watched it and I said, this really isn't, saying what it's about. The press packet and the cover and all that, and we talked about that, and that was your feeling too. And so, how do you be true to yourself? How do you sell it? How do you get it to the right people? It's just interesting questions, I think.
Yeah, it's not enough just to be an artist, I think. You have to have a business mind.
Either that or have a really good partner who you trust who is.
God.
I think
if he's out there, please contact me. I could use it.
Right.
Because, I'm figuring this out as I go along. But, it's tough to know. How do you connect? If you have something that you believe in and has value to it, that's one thing. But how do you let people know what it is? And I'm a bit, I'm more subtle with. I don't like blatant, going out and selling myself on the street and going, here, buy my movie, buy my.
Right. With
I'm a little
sandwich board.
I'm not much of a salesman.
Right. No, it's hard. It's hard to do both. It's hard. It's really hard to play both roles.
Yeah.
Even as an actor, hi, I'm a good actor, rather than you have an agent saying he's a good actor. It's hard to do as a human being.
I mentioned to you earlier, I was told by someone when I was younger I think there are really two different types of people that become actors. One is the extrovert that says, "Hi, here I am. Look at me. I want the attention." But then there's the other actor who is an introvert who wants to be able to be somebody else, or play it, or given lines and be able to step into a role and not be somebody else. And I'm sort of more in that category.
Right, right. Which
So-
makes it, harder to do that. Like if you're doing both sides of it,
Yeah.
playing mother and father of the movie kind of.
Yeah.
I know, it's tricky. So, and you're working on a new one which has that same kind of tone and same intention.
Yeah, it's based on a book by a guy named Jacob Needleman, and who's a philosopher and mostly writes nonfiction. But it is, again, it's a story that is on the surface, I believe, very entertaining, and something that, as an artist, I can create a wonderful trance for people to fall into. It's about a young kid who wants to become a magician. But underneath it is quite a huge mythos of what this kid is going through, and ideas of what it is to be a good person. And that's underneath a wonderful story. And so that's the type of picture that I'd like to keep making. So.
And are you in the process of writing it, getting money to produce
it's
it?
yeah. I mean, I wish I was a painter or something. It'd be a lot cheaper, a lot faster, a lot easier.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting. I mean, we deal with a lot, after doing this show for so long and so many shows and painters, and now the art project. I mean, I can't tell you how many painters who I could set my watch every 7 years they file for bankruptcy. I mean, so, especially if you're doing something that has that meaning, that aren't, the conventional, the traditional things. There are a few of them that are doing fantastic,
Well, we mentioned this earlier too. A lot of how I got my film made was, there are a lot of artists that have incredible talent, but it's not how they make their money. It's not their job. And so it retains a purity that it's very hard to retain if you're trying to make money doing it at the same time, especially if you're a painter or a musician or, even a filmmaker. To be
Right.
able to make things I care about and make a living is
Right.
tough.
I know.
But-
I think it's a really thin line because people do have to go to the VODs and
Yeah,
pay.
yeah.
It's like,
What are you going to do?
what are you going to do? I mean, really, when I hear these people are filing for bankruptcy, literally, I look at my watch, it's 7 years from the last, or I think now they extended it to 10, so my whole watch system is screwed up now. But, and they're so beautiful. These people are so pure, and their art is so much a part of, that dedication and that intention. Mm-hmm. And they make so much effort at it, and they're so talented. I think that we have to really hit that monkey where that stuff is really appreciated.
I think the way to that is through collaboration, through finding other people like that. And for me as a filmmaker, what I did, from the composer to a grip to...
Yeah, you were saying, somebody said that they loved the soundtrack.
Yeah.
You said the guy's actually delivering pizza as we speak.
Oh, he is.
Right.
He delivers pizzas, but he's an amazing musician.
Right.
And has a soul that comes
Yeah.
through his music, but he isn't out peddling it and selling it.
Right.
But for me, it's finding people like that, and that's where you can compete with the people with money, with the studios, is a collaboration with people.
Yeah, but we were talking earlier, that sometimes takes more time because these people have to be delivering the pizza and aren't devoting their life to it.
Yeah, it's fast, cheap, or good. You can
Two
have
of
two of the three.
Right.
Not all three, two of the three.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know, it's a really interesting process. In the position we're in, we literally, I was telling you a little earlier, get probably hundreds of books and tapes every month of extraordinary things. And depending on how many tapes or books they give their mother and their mother-in-law, they have 850 in the garage out of 1,000. Or, if they took a two-state book tour or a 4-state book tour. I mean, and you read these things, like, these guys have an extraordinary gift, an extraordinary experience, and it's like so many of them. But I think that's really happening, and like you were saying, and we see that a lot, is like the more the collaborations happen, that the web gets stronger. You know, you out there alone is not strong, but you and 25 people who believe in what you're doing and
I would
supporting
say,
each other.
You know, if in terms of technology and the internet and all that, that's definitely a positive aspect of it all, is the ability for those networks to take place and those people to meet. Hopefully not just via computer screen, but even if it starts there, it's a good one.
Has there been any attempt at, you know, getting Illusion to be, what was that movie about, you know, people went in the woods, they never came out, that all of a sudden was on the internet, you know, all over.
Blair Witch, maybe?
Blair Witch,
yeah. Using the internet to help promote. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's definitely an approach that they're going to take or will take with the film, is using that.
Because really, I mean, it's
they
amazing.
Call it viral marketing.
Oh, yeah, it's like a virus. It spreads like a virus. I mean, because that group, MoveOn.org, I mean, out of nowhere became, you know, just unbelievable.
Yeah. I personally think that I love all that stuff, but I have a tough time with how detached it can make people to be so engaged to a computer screen all the time.
You mean there are other people on the planet?
Yeah, you can actually touch people.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
that's too weird.
Yeah,
No.
I know. You can wear gloves if you want to.
Right, that's right. One glove you touch with, then you move to Bahrain or something. Yeah, no, it's a strange place. There's a lot of strangeness going on. So, you know, it was interesting because really, I mean, you know, I got the press packet, and then I started watched it intimately, and then I watched the whole thing. I said, there's really something here. You know, there's really something here, and that, you know, I was getting the feeling like it was going to be a difficult sell the way it was being sold, and I realized, like, you know, and it's a really thin line of how, you know, see, for us when we do the show, I mean, we put it out there, and either people like it or not, you know, and everybody who does it's a volunteer, even though they're, you know, highly professional, all that. So we have that advantage. You know what I mean? And we're a nonprofit, so we can, you know, donations and, you know, with your art project. But to actually do it in a sense where it has to support itself, like these artists or, you know, making movies or something like that, it's just a thin line, I think.
Well, that's where the creativity on the business side, the marketing side, that's just as important as what I'm doing. And I would say encourage people that are in that part of, or that kind of business, you know, we need you. I need you. I need people that can be as creative with how to sell as I'm going to do with making a film. Or
that's interesting, and maybe that's, you know, the lawyers and the accountants who really know, and the marketers and the PR people.
Yeah, because there's a few lawyers out there with the soul, and there's, you know, some.
Well, actually, I was trained as a lawyer, and I'm not sure if that's really the case. No, there are some. There got to be some. It's just, but it's tough. It's a tough, you know, it's like, how do you do it in that environment?
Yeah. But I would say that, like with, you know, in Illusion, a lot of, one aspect of the story is about this character that Kirk plays, his whole life has been living in a certain persona. Donald
and that
Baines,
breaks
the
down.
Character, and he's making movies and his identity in that respect, and to get lost in that. And this movie is about someone who, at the end of their life, then wakes up in a way and goes,
yeah, maybe that's happened. Maybe we're hitting the.
Where was I the whole time? Where was I when I had a son and now I, you know?
Right. We got about, you know, a little while. One last, people should see it. People should get a good feeling. Yeah. Okay, if anybody wants to know about when it's going to be shown, about Michael, about Illusion, give me a call, Alan, 805-687-2053. Good night. We love you. Thank you for coming. Good night. God bless you.